Hi guys and welcome to my review of the brand new Weezer album, Pacific Daydream. Weezer are an alternative rock band from America. Their first two albums, Blue Album and Pinkerton, are considered to be two of the best rock albums of the 90s, and definitely two of my all-time favourites. The band have never really been able to capture the heights of those two albums, and in the 2000s their career was definitely very troubled. They released two decent albums with the Red Album and Hurley, but they also had Make Believe and Gratitude, two of the worst albums the band have ever done. And what made these albums so bad in my opinion was the fact that the band kind of lost their unique identity. They went from being that sort of geeky rock band to being a band that pretty much just made pop music about wanting money and fame and wanting to party and stuff like that. And when Weezer do that, it really doesn't work at all. In the early 2010s, the band stepped away from that a little bit and kind of started to embrace what I think attracted people to them in the first place. They did a few 20th anniversary shows where they played the Blue Album and Pinkerton back to back, and then they also released Everything Will Be Alright in the End, one of the best albums of their entire career. A really solid pure rock album with all the power pop melodies and stuff that made their first four albums memorable. And it's a shame that after the White Album came out, which is a really good record in its own right, everyone kind of started to forget about it. It seems that a lot of people consider the White Album to kind of be the band's big return to form, but I think Everything Will Be Alright in the End was the band's return to form. The White Album, in my opinion, just kind of followed on a lot of the sounds that they brought back on that previous album, and also mixed it in a little bit with some of the modern pop sounds that they had in the 2000s. Anyone who saw my review of it will remember that I was a big fan of it when it came out last year, and although I didn't do a favourite albums list last year, it would have been pretty high up on that list. I still really like it. It's definitely one of my favourite sort of summery albums. So I was actually kind of excited when the band said that they were going to follow up the White Album with this new album that was very contrasting to it. It was going to be a much darker and bleaker album, and it was going to be called the Black Album. It was going to be pretty much the complete opposite of what the White Album was, and I thought that idea was very intriguing. However, the Black Album ended up getting postponed to 2018, and they brought us Pacific Daydream, a collection of songs that were written while writing that Black Album, but songs that didn't really fit in with the style that Rivers was going for. Anyone who saw my review of the first single from the album feels like someone may remember that I was a big fan of it. It definitely doesn't have any of the rock elements of the previous album. It is just pretty much a pure electronic pop song. It takes a lot of hip-hop inspiration in some of the instrumentation. I think people who aren't a fan of modern pop probably will be incredibly put off by it, and I will admit that when I first listened to it, I was not really a huge fan, but it ended up growing on me, and honestly, it's one of my favourite pop songs from the entire year. I think it's an incredibly catchy, fun, upbeat song. I just really dig it, and there was also a really good acoustic version of it as well. I definitely recommend checking both the original song out and the acoustic version. But after we got Feels Like Summer back in March of this year, it was kind of silent from the Weezer camp. Although they were playing a lot of shows around the world, there wasn't really a lot of updates on whether this new Black Album was going to be coming out or when the next song was going to be coming out at all. However, in August, the band finally released a new song, Mexican Fender, and also announced this new album, Pacific Daydream. In my review of Mexican Fender that I did when it first came out, I was quite fond of the song. I thought it was a really cool little throwback to like early 2000s Weezer, but it also kind of blended in a more pop sensibility to it, which I thought worked. And still to this day, I think there are things I really like about it, especially when it comes to the melody and stuff like that. It has a really great hook to it, but what really ruins the song for me is the lyrics, and over repeated listens I think the lyrics have really ruined it, and the verses I personally think are just really bad. I don't like the verses at all. It just, although at first I was like, this is alright, over time it's really gotten quite grating to listen to. The song over repeated listens quickly went from being a song I really dug to being a song that now I don't really like that much at all. But there are things I like about it still. It's not a completely awful song, and After listening to the rest of the album, it actually still manages to be one of the highlights. With the rest of the songs on this album, it seems like Weezer are kind of going back into bad habits. Something that people may remember about the band is that there was a point in the late 2000s where they were releasing an album a year, and yeah, it didn't work in the band's favour at all. I think the only time they've ever been able to do an album a year after the previous album and have it work was with Maladroit, and sadly with the new album it still doesn't work. The majority of this album is just so bland and forgettable. For me, this album kind of feels like what Amnesiac was to Kid A. Kid A has a bunch of really great songs, and Amnesiac has a couple of good songs that would have fit on that previous album, but for the most part it's just quite forgettable and bland. And although there are moments on this that I think could work on a much better album, for the most part these are just songs that, I don't know, they're not really worth writing home about. There are a lot of songs on here that honestly I don't really remember, and I've listened to the album a few times, but these songs just won't stick in my head at all. It just, I listen to them and it's like in one ear and out the other. Examples of this is pretty much the entire second half of the album. After we get past the 5th song on the album, Weekend Woman, and I should just point out the first 5 songs on this album, all of them were released as singles. I don't know why, it was incredibly stupid of them doing it, but they released literally half of the album as a single. Yeah, as I said, after we get past Weekend Woman, the album doesn't really have many really great standout moments. There is the song Sweet Mary, which honestly is one of the best songs on the album. It's just incredible. It reminds me, I don't know, of sort of the slower songs from something like the Blue Album or Pinkerton, and it blends in the more modern pop production really well. But yeah, apart from Sweet Mary, after the 5th track, there's not really a lot going on. It just kind of seems to be pretty much all filler. We do have the song La Mancha Screwjob, which is more than just filler and just honestly a flat out awful song. It starts off with that really cliche, annoying sort of voice, vocal synth thing which is in every pop song at the moment. I honestly don't like it in any song, and this song does not change my mind. The song is pretty much everything you'd expect a song called La Mancha Screwjob to be. It's incredibly annoying, grating, it's just not fun to listen to at all. And even in the first 5 tracks there isn't really a lot that's that great. Mexican Fender, as I said, was okay. There's Feels Like Summer, which I really like, and also there's Weekend Woman, which I honestly adore that song. It's this really bouncy, pretty love song, which I honestly really dig it. It has an incredible chorus, really good instrumentation. It just feels like something that should have been on a much better album. Like, this is one of the only times in the album where I listened to it and could easily see it being on the White Album. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I found out that this was actually a song written for that album that just didn't make the final cut. And yeah, if you only listen to a couple songs on the album, I'd say definitely check out Weekend Woman and probably Sweet Mary as well. That's pretty much the best that this album ever gets. And there's also the other 2 singles, Beach Boys and Happy Hour, which are 2 of the worst songs Weezer have ever done in my personal opinion. These songs and a lot of the album in general tries to go for this more chilled out sort of beach vibe, similar to what the last album did, but it really doesn't work. Because it lacks the incredible songwriting of the White Album and the really catchy, pretty melodies that that album had also, you're just kind of left with these songs that are very empty and nothing at times. And lyrically as well, these are 2 of the worst songs that Rivers Cuomo has ever written. Both of these songs have heavy references to loads of different artists and bands, none of which really make any sense and none of which are really needed at all. Not to mention that, but the vocals from Rivers on these songs as well, just, it sounds like he doesn't care and doesn't want to put any passion in, and it's almost like he doesn't want to be there, he doesn't want to play the songs, and yeah, it just makes you not want to listen to the songs at all. It makes them really boring, forgettable, they don't really sink in at all, because it doesn't sound like Rivers or any of the band really care about it either. For me, the album feels like none of the band members really cared and really put any passion into it. It's kind of almost like they were like, the White Album came out a year ago and we're starting to fade away in the public eye, we should make some more music before people forget us. The problem is, they are still one of the biggest bands in the world. They're Weezer. Like, we're not gonna just forget about them because it's been a year. I think the album really would have benefited from more time and work being put into it. And I know that they're making the Black Album, and these songs that they've written just didn't really fit for that album, and it's understandable that they may still want to release them. But there are moments where it feels like Rivers only actually wrote a few songs and then just decided to rush out a load more songs just to make it a full 10-song album. And yeah, it really doesn't work. The band going back into the more mainstream modern day pop sound really doesn't work. It's just proof that the band really need to just stick at rock, stick what they're good at, and stop trying to do something that isn't Weezer. I don't know why they've kind of alienated their fans by going off and making music that they know the fans don't like. Rivers has said before that he's very self-conscious about the albums and that he takes all the reviews and feedback and stuff into consideration when writing the next album. But if that were the case, then we wouldn't have this album, which basically does exactly what Make Believe and Gratitude did completely wrong. It's like they've learned from their mistakes and then they just decided, nah, can't be bothered, and then went back and started making the same mistakes that they made years prior. And because of that, this album ends up being incredibly grating and painful to listen to at times. I know a lot of people are saying that this album is just kind of meh, but I personally just really don't like it. Out of the 10 tracks, I think I probably only really like 3 of them, and that is Feels Like Summer, Weekend Woman, and Sweet Mary. Apart from that, I'd say Mexican Fender is decent, if not incredibly flawed, and also the song QB Blitz is okay, but nothing amazing. After that, the songs just kind of range from being incredibly mediocre and forgettable to just being flat out awful. And it's a shame that the band have gone back into making this kind of music after the incredible streak that they were on with the previous 2 albums. Maybe the Black Album will point the band back in the right direction, but sadly I'm incredibly hesitant, and yeah, I'm less excited for the next album than I was, say, like a year or so ago. And it's a shame I have to say this about the album, because Weezer are a band that I love. I think every single one of their albums has a few really good songs, of course this is no exception, but it's definitely a shame when they release an album this bad. Although not quite as bad as Make Believe or Gratitude, I'd probably say this is probably the band's 3rd worst album to date. I'd much rather listen to something like the Red Album or Hurley again than I would listen to this. So because of that, I'm going to give the new Weezer album Pacific Daydream a 3 out of 10. Hi guys, thanks for watching my review of the new Weezer album. Sorry it's taken a little bit of time. I originally planned to get it out like the week after it came out, but I think now it's been almost 2-3 weeks since it originally came out. Yeah, I decided to just set up the camera and just kind of go for it, not really script anything, just kind of get my thoughts out there so people kind of know how I feel about it. I'm interested to see whether you guys thought it was as bad as I did or whether you actually quite liked it, so let me know your opinions on the album in the comment section below. And there's not really a lot more albums coming out this year, so I'm probably just going to get straight into working on the year-end lists, unless there's like a big surprise drop album coming out. I know the new Eminem album is set to come out next week apparently, so, or it's this week actually, so I may do a review of that, I guess we'll see. So thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.